can you move the gas from the wells to processing facilities without compressor engines and pipelines?
No, we could not.
Why is that?
Well, without the pipelines, without the compression, the gas would just primarily stay in the home. We could reach an equilibrium to the compressor site and be done.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. What would happen to the gas if you didn't move it through the pipeline?
There'd be no way to move it to get the pressure up. The gas would primarily stay in the ground.
The gas would sit at the well site, is what you're saying?
Yes, it'll reach a point that you'd get no more from it and stop.
You said it. What is it, Mr. Sullivan?
The gas would stop.
The gas would stop?
The flow of gas.
That's all I had for Mr. Sullivan. And there was, I believe, maybe some other questions that people had that Mr. Rayburn had deferred to Greg. Anybody?
Well, just a couple of questions. Mr. Sullivan, you're not suggesting that when you drill a well, that the gas won't come out unless there's a compressor right there?
I'm suggesting that without the pipelines and without the compressors, the gas would not be able to go anywhere.
But that's another step in the entire process, beyond the removal itself.
No, I mean, otherwise it would be an open-ended hole.
Well, your compressors may be located 6, 8, 10 miles from the well, is that correct?
For sure, no, probably 5 miles, 4 to 5 miles.
And a compressor may serve multiple wells?
Depending on what the well is capable of producing. It depends on the volume of the compressor, but one compressor can handle one well.
So that the actual drilling operation is not dependent upon your compressor?
Drilling a hole in the ground?
Right.
Well, our compressors don't turn drills. Our compressors move gas.
And the gas that comes out isn't necessarily dependent on your compressor. That's somewhere down the line.
Well, it depends. Are you talking about, are you referring to moving gas to a market, or are you referring to just having a hole in the ground?
No, I'm talking about removal of gas.
Requires pipelines and compression.
Well, that's removal onto the market. Removal from
No.
from the...
Where else are you going to move it to? I'm sorry, I don't understand, I guess.
With respect to the safety data sheet that you referred to in Exhibit 25, if you read on the second page, though, it does it not state that with respect to first aid measures that in case of contact you should flush the skin for copiously, well, with plenty of water for at least 15 minutes, looking at the top.
It says flush the skin with water, correct?
And then with respect to firefighting measures, it indicates that you should wear full protective clothing, self-contained breathing apparatus, and that above the flash point, explosive vapor air mixtures may be burned.
Yes, it does.
These are just characteristics of this particular gas.
Of the triethylene glycol, whenever it's burned.
I have another question.
Larry Graham, Township Supervisor, I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about the flare at compressor sites.
Yes, sir.
That is a necessary thing? That's not something that can be recycled rather than burnt right there?
It's primarily water, so we don't want to put water into our system.
You're burning the water.
The flare is there for any hydrocarbons that would be within the glycol, and so whenever that is released, the primary purpose of the regeneration is to release the water from the glycol, because that's the dehydration process. So we release the water from the glycol, and then any entrained vapor that may be within that glycol that has been absorbed by that glycol is then burnt and basically has the destruction factor so that there are no emissions. The emissions that are there are minuscule.
It's been my impression, maybe correct or not, that this wet vapor and gas can be recycled to another system. It doesn't have to be clear. That's my point.
Well, the water, we cannot recycle. If we put the water into the pipeline, then that's the whole purpose of the dehydration, is to remove the
I'm not
water.
talking about the pipeline. I'm talking about a separate dehydration unit. It pulls this other stuff out, so you don't have to flare at the compressor stations.
I'm not familiar with that. I mean, as far as what we do is we run what we call BTEX flare for total destruction of the emissions from the dehydration unit. Unless there's something I'm not aware of. I mean,
You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, you're saying from what I'm understanding is you're saying in the same capacity as to what we do with condensate with vapor recovery.
Basically, whatever's coming out of there,
That would become a pressurized
and
product.
have to go into another vessel and be cleaned out without having a flare.
That vessel would then become pressurized,
Okay?
and it would have gas vapor in it, and it would have to be disposed of at some point, some way, somehow.
Okay?
Water is non-compressible. So if you take water vapor off of a unit of that nature, that water is going to condense. When that water condenses and goes into a compressor, it breaks. It means water is a non-compressible. It's not like a gas molecule.
Apparently I'm not conveying what my question is. It's just that I think that I have heard from somewhere, it might have been from a competitor of yours there, Williams, that stuff can be completely recycled. That was in my impression. I don't, maybe it's my mistaken impression. I don't know. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question before you start? Sorry. When you do the flaring at the compressor site, how does the flame get ignited?
It's got a continuous pipe.
Okay. It's like a gas furnace or
Yes.
a hot water tank?
Yes, sir.
Just one question from myself. And maybe you're not the expert to speak on this, but in terms of the pressures that come out of the wells,
Yes, sir.
they rise and fall, apparently. I mean, can you speak to the nature of potential pressures that come out of wells? Because I know some of them have heard it's been very high pressure, low
Right,
pressure.
when they first initially drill in the well pressures, the downhole pressures, they're going to be high pressures. As you start to flow gas off that, the pressures deplete. They'll continually deplete. Matter of fact, some wells even at a point where, whether it be water or different things, in fact, they'll actually re-inject high pressure gas back down the well at a low volume to build that up, to sweep that well to get it moving gas again. So there's a lot of things they do to old wells to regenerate them, to get them going again. But as far as, the flowing of the well, it'll just keep dropping off and fall off.
Some follow-up questions. I've just been given some papers here. I'm sure you thought it out. This is supposed to be an EPA-backed new dehydration system. Quantum leak natural gas dehydration technology. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Well, I think it's time to get familiar.